Hate is a strong word I generally reserve for my internet service provider and TigerBeat.com's new web redesign. Come on, TigerBeat. Guys like fashion too. But I also think I'm going to add pop music to the list of things I hate. And I kind of want to talk about my own opinions on songwriting in relation to maybe how I personally perceive pop music. Keep in mind, these are all my opinions. I'm not saying that what I do is right by any circumstance, but I know a lot of you guys have questions about songwriting as far as like the new stuff. So I kind of wanted to use my newest song, Legacy, which I'll link you to below if you want to check that out. I'll probably play a little bit of it in a second too, just to kind of use it as an example of what I think is thoughtful songwriting. And I think a lot of it comes down to just kind of like the importance of lyrics. It seems like in modern pop music, the lyrics are all pretty basic, kind of awful, kind of painful to listen to, etc., etc. And it doesn't seem like a lot of thought is put into them. I agonize over my own lyrics to try to make things sound interesting and to maybe say the same things that we all feel in a fresh kind of way. Because, I mean, like, honestly, like, my emotional experience is probably not that much different than, like, the basic lame emotions that like Ed Sheeran feels, but I just kind of feel like I want to say it in a different way. And case in point, that newest song I was talking about is definitely a breakup song. So I think it kind of helps to know a little bit of the backstory behind that song to kind of see my approach to it. Because it's like a 7-minute long song, so it's ambitious, and I think it's a good representation of kind of just the whole vibe that I'm going for. So even though lyrically you might not be able to tell it's a breakup song, that's definitely what it is, because a lot of it is kind of shrouded in the writing of it.
Satellite gold, the light of my faculty. I'd never find such control. Legacy drip on the blood of my enemy. Now it's running through me. Yeah, it's running through me. Because you forced my hand. When I vowed to never again.
Again, when I say this is like a breakup song, every kind of relationship is different, and I think music is just like one of the cool things a lot of people are drawn towards music is because they can find an expressive way to kind of showcase and emote what they're going through. And to make a long story short, I was in this relationship that spanned a couple of years. Wasn't working out. It wasn't anybody's fault, but at the end of the day, it's like I kind of wanted to be real about it, and this is kind of like a common trend in a lot of people's relationships is maybe one person wants to be real about it and the other person just can't. So the other person just ends up being like super mean and spiteful to try to get the other person to break up with them because they don't want to actually break up with them themselves. So this is kind of what I was going through, and again, I like keeping it real. I was trying to keep it real the whole time, but eventually it got to the point where she was just like basically forcing my hand to like just kind of like do it. So I try to keep my composure a lot of the time, but I was like, all right, fine, forget it, whatever. And that's kind of like what that first verse is kind of about. But even before that, before I even started writing the song, I remember actually like going through and kind of like adding the finality to that relationship, which again, I was kind of pressured into doing to be like the bad guy or whatever. I was by a piano because I was actually practicing during the whole thing, and I remember right afterwards I was kind of just like, I wasn't like sad, because again, pop music, it almost seems to kind of boil down to like a couple things. It's either like you're sad or you're heartbroken or you're just like totally into somebody and attractive to them, and the way the music reflects the lyricism in it comes down to basically like, well, is it in a minor key or is it kind of upbeat 4 on the floor kick drum? And again, in my opinion, with exceptions, pop music generally doesn't have that kind of that marriage between the elements of what the music sounds like and what the message of or what the theme of the message actually is. And kind of like a roundabout way of doing that. I just remember being at the piano when it happened, and I was just kind of exhausted mentally, just having to deal with the whole thing, that I was just kind of playing and ended up being like, that kind of theme, which in that song, the whole song is basically a build up to that one musical moment. And in my opinion, what I try to strive for songwriting, again, not saying that I do the best job or anything, but what I'm thoughtful about is trying to find those musical moments and then have the songwriting be structured in a way that those moments, the authenticity of it, is showcased. So what I was trying to do musically with the song is kind of distill that E minor piano thing that I had written and then kind of simplify it a little bit, because I remember at that time I wasn't sad, I was just more kind of over it. And I know a lot of people say the minor scale is a sad sounding thing, which is such a basic oversimplified way to put it, and just kind of the end of a relationship, or maybe some kind of anything that you're feeling that is powerfully affecting you, to label it as just sad is just a vast oversimplification in my experience. So what I wanted to do was take that kind of busy-ish, complicated for me anyways, piano part, and distill it into more of a guitar riff. So again, it's in E minor. This is actually tuned down a half step, but eventually this ended up being distilled down into, alright, I'll do it in E. So I kind of wanted to just take a thematic approach to okay, there's the complicated nature of what I was feeling, distill it into something simpler, and then have that be the theme of the song. So this particular song has a 2-minute intro, which is kind of a huge turnoff for some people, but again, if you've checked out any of my own music, I'm not trying to write things that people will just find popular. I'm just kind of just trying to be authentic with my own writing, and having a 2-minute instrumental intro is kind of a bold move that might turn some people off, but I thought that was definitely important because this whole this relationship I was in spanned several years. So the point of getting to that musical moment was a very long and painful suffering and process that I had to go through. And I think I wanted to kind of distill it to kind of make it simpler to how it was when it started, and then drag it out to make it, when I finally get to that point, it happens. And the whole music kind of goes with it. It goes with the guitar intro, and then it goes to a more laid back verse. And as the song progresses, the vocals get a little more strained. The tempo, it's still to a click track, but the tempo kind of has a little more urgency to when the music kind of falls out. And it's really just this long build up into that one musical moment in E minor that I just literally felt in the time of experiencing what the song is actually about.
We're not about to never again.
To me, those things are kind of, an important distinction to make when you're writing a song. And I personally just don't feel like that exists in a lot of pop music. It seems like that, more attention was taken care of that, maybe in the past, in pop music from decades ago, stuff like that. I don't know, but I'm just not really personally hearing it, and I don't really identify or relate to it that much. So the whole thing was like a build up to that one piano part, and then kind of like everything falls out, which is definitely kind of like how I felt. Like there's all this noise going on at that time in my life, and then when I finally broke it off, it's like, all right, this is it. This is what I'm feeling. Solo piano, and then eventually, slowly but surely, things get added back into the mix, which that theme comes back. And I think for me, my favorite part of that song is like I think it's really kind of beautiful when that piano arrangement ends up kind of meeting the guitar theme for like really the first time after a few passes around on the piano, and that was just kind of like just the feeling of like being okay with everything that was happening. To me, from like a storytelling standpoint of the entire song, it kind of is like a timeline of just how I was feeling about like that whole relationship in general. And it's not really like a sad thing. It's just kind of like, something that like you're trying hard. There's a lot going on, like it is with like a lot of people and their relationships. Didn't work out, whatever. The whole mix kind of comes back in as like a support structure. And the interesting thing about that is one of the songs off my first album, Buried, which maybe I'll link you to also too if you haven't heard that one, is another one of my favorite personal ones, because that's almost kind of like the sequel to that song, where I kind of really like bounced back and was like in like a strong place from that. So in closing, I just kind of want to say that that's how I feel. Like, I think when you're writing a song, if you have ambitions to write songs, just try to be like thoughtful about things and try to like maintain the authenticity of what you're trying to do. And not to say that, again, like I said, that that's right, that's the wrong thing to do. There's like a ton of bands out there that I just think are like absolutely nasty that do not take this approach at all. And that's fine. This is just kind of like my own style and how I perceive songwriting in general. So, maybe if you're kind of feel like you're stuck at a point in your own songwriting, just really kind of just be as honest as possible and try to like reflect in the music what you're actually trying to say. And to me, when that actually happens with a piece of music and lyrics or a melody or whatever, even if there aren't any lyrics, even if it's just instrumental, like I know a lot of different like bands and composers specifically are absolute masters of being able to kind of marry the idea of a feeling with a piece of music without even having to use lyrics, which is kind of like the upper echelon of musicianship, in my opinion. I mean, I think when that happens, when those musical moments happen, I think it's really kind of, again, I keep saying the word authenticity. I think that people will recognize and kind of hear that. It's just kind of like the emotion and expressionism of your playing in general. So anyways, that was just kind of my thoughts behind tracking this newer song and my thoughts on songwriting in general and how I kind of hate pop music because it really is almost the antithesis of everything that I personally believe in songwriting, which again, by no means is one way better than another. It's just kind of like how I approach it. So if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.